his loved ones. Salawat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad.
اللهم صل Thank you, Mahdi. I appreciate those kind words. May Allah bless you and your family as well, inshallah. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين. وبه نستعين وهو خير الناصر والمعين. وصلى الله على سيدنا محمد وآله الطاهرين. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد وعجل فرجهم. Salamun alaykum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Welcome to another one of our Wednesday night discussions on the 7 principles of a successful family. We have up until now, alhamdulillah, with the tawfiq of Allah and all of your support, spoken about the first 3 principles of the 7. And as I've been saying almost every single week, these are not my principles. They're not something I've made up. These we get from our 6th Imam, Imam Sadiq alayhi salatu wasalam, in a book called Misbahul Sharia, the Lantern of the Path, which in that book that's been attributed to Imam Sadiq, he talks about ubudiyah, subservience, in the very first chapter. And in that chapter, he says, if one wishes to be subservient to Allah in the truest sense, then 4 different relationships are required for you to examine, for us to examine. And one of them is how we are with other individuals. And for the sake of our discussion now, we'll look at those principles that he describes between us and the makhluk, between us and the creation. And in that relationship now, he describes 7 accompanying principles to examine. So that's what we've been doing, guys. We've been breaking down every principle bit by bit. And now we've reached this week where we will look at 2 principles tonight, principle number 4 and principle number 5. Next Wednesday being our last session on this topic, we'll look at, of course, the last 2 principles next Wednesday, inshallah. One point that I've been making constantly, and for those of you who might be new or you're archiving the YouTube lectures later on, when I say family, I am very specific in talking about your children, your siblings, your parents, and your spouse. These are the 4 core groups that are around you. First cousins, uncles and aunts, second cousins, third cousins, neighbors, aunts, sons, dogs, nephew. Those, inshallah, will be a later discussion. But this right now, we're talking about these 4 main discussions inside of the deen. Okay, so let's go ahead and begin. We have a lot to cover tonight, and as always, as questions come up, you can either message Mehdi if you have his personal number, or you can go ahead and include it in the chat, inshallah. Okay, so let me go ahead and share my screen, and then we'll go from there. So as I mentioned, these are principles that I think are ones that we can truly begin to apply now, given the fact that we are in a different family mindset since the pandemic hit. Again, not sure how things are in the state of Michigan, or there are others, let's say, up and down the US that are right now joining me, even some in Canada. But here, of course, in Toronto, as of the 26th of December, we'll be in a complete lockdown in our province across the board. Only the essentials are open. But I can't get my haircut I get every 3 weeks, which is going to be tough for my wife, but inshallah, and I won't let her cut my hair because I'm not crazy, but inshallah, I'll manage, guys. I know you're concerned about my fade and my beard trim, but inshallah, don't worry, I won't let myself go by next Wednesday. I know how important this presentation is for this lecture. So, so it is a good time for us to be together and for you to really stop and kind of examine the state of your families together, inshallah. Let's get to our slides. So the 4th principle up until now, our first principle was hilm, forbearance. Our second principle was forgiveness. Our third principle from last week was humility, tawazu', to be humble. I talked about the power of listening. I talked about many other things, how we can truly allow the person or be ourselves humble with others in our family. In today's principle, we look at the concept of generosity in a family. To be sakhi, to have sakhawat in Islam. And I find this discussion, and I have read a number of lectures and majalis on this topic alone. It is one of those qualities that Imam Sajjad alayhi salatu wasalam mentioned in his very famous khutbah of inside the courtyard of Yazid, when in that difficult state he delivered this powerful khutbah, and in there he said that we, the Ahlul Bayt, are known for 6 qualities. One of them, of course, is sakhawat, that we are generous. Now, generosity, how you and I, or maybe how I understand it, is a very simple process, right? You give to the one who asks. But the reality is that true generosity in Islam is to give before being asked. And this will be, a very, very important thing to establish inside of your home, that if there are people around you, like I said, your parent, your spouse, your child, your sibling, who require something from you, and I don't mean the shirt off your back, or I don't mean the money in your pocket, I mean they require something from you. They require love and patience. They require an ear. They require understanding. They require for you to look at them through the lens that they want you to look at them through, and not how you want to. Then that ultimately is generosity. That before they'll come and say to you, Baj, or brother, or bhaiya, or this bhai, or mom, or dad, or right, or to your spouse, that look, I really need you to put everything away and give this to me, or give me some time. I'm having a rough couple of days, blah blah blah. We should be so in tune with our families to know exactly what is required from them. Okay. To be generous, we must be in tune with the needs of the one we are giving to. To give when asked is easy. Generosity is not, somebody's asking you for a donation, or someone is, downtown Detroit, let's say, for example, you're taking the subway, some guy's playing the guitar, he's got his guitar case open, and you drop a $1 bill, and you say, oh, you know what, I was generous. Or, for example, I don't know, you dropped off some food. Those are all great things, mind you, no doubt about it. But the highest level inside the family, inside your inner circles, is to first identify what the person you love needs before they come and ask you. And then go ahead and give it to them before that. So, for example, I'm just giving examples, right? For example, that your wife has had a rough couple of days. She's not herself. She's quiet. She's reserved. She's kind of aloof. She's having she's having a me day sort of thing, right? Not very talkative, very, very quiet. You could tell something is off. You're trying to get it from her. Are you okay? Everything all right? You want to talk about it? She doesn't want to talk about it. And sometimes we don't have the words, right? Sometimes, we don't want to share those feelings with the ones around us. And that's okay. It doesn't mean that you won't understand, or no, it just means that right now I don't want to put it into words. And we have to respect that, right? As a parent, spouse, sibling, and child, we have to respect that. But what we can do is do everything else to make them feel better, maybe pull them out of this little funk that they're in, And if that means, grabbing, I don't know, some flowers, if that means that, bringing home her favorite food, if that means, for example, small things here and there, making a coffee, bring it, small things, right? And that these are things that make her happy, then those are things that are done with the feeling of generosity. Okay. Otherwise, what ends up happening is that things like, I've been down for 3 or 4 days, haven't been myself. I've been waiting for you for some gesture, any gesture, to show me that you're thinking about me, that you even care. You want me to spell out that, can you make me feel better by, right? Those kind of things are, those kind of things you should avoid. Imam Ali speaks about the Holy Prophet as a walking physician, as a walking doctor. A roaming physician is a better word. He would walk around the streets of Mecca and Medina, and he could tell that somebody needed help before they even knew that they needed help. He could see symptoms before they had to verbalize the symptoms, and he'll give them the prescription. Either, I don't mean a physical prescription, but something to make them better. Read this dua, do this, fast, for example, right? Go and spend time with your parents, for example. I don't know, take your spouse out for a nice dinner, let's say. Drop the kids off at the in-laws or at your mom's house, and you two just have a nice quiet day at home. A dinner, let's say, and you can watch, watch whatever you want to watch, right? But the Prophet was only able to be a roaming physician when he was completely in tune with his ummah and nation. When he felt for others outside of himself. When he was selfless in his generosity. When he gave out of those things that he loved. And this very famous verse on the screen in front of you, from Surah Ali Imran, is a beautiful, beautiful verse that really needs, some heavy explanation, which I don't have time for. But لَن تَنَالُوا الْبِرَّ حَتَّى تُنْفِقُوا مِمَّا تُحِبُّونَ, that you'll never reach the level of bir, to be abrar. Righteousness is an okay word, but bir literally means in Arabic, land, earth. It's the opposite of bahar, right? Bahar is sea, right? Bir is land, meaning that your goodness will now spread all over the land. That's what's called righteousness in Arabic. And the Quran says that you'll never reach that level until you give not just anything, but out of what you love. So sometimes it could be something tangible, right? Like the money you earn is very near and dear to you. You work very hard for your money, and now you're giving a donation to somebody or a center or a cause or a mission. Or it could be the fact that, there's some clothing drive or some food drive. That's simple enough. The tough ones are, for example, I'll give you a very mundane, silly example. The game is on, right? The NBA now has kicked off. Last night was opening night, right? LeBron got his ring, right? And, you're sitting there watching the game. You couldn't wait now to watch, right? The debut of Kyrie and KD together in Brooklyn. And I'm sorry for those of you guys who don't know basketball and sports. And now all of a sudden you realize something's not right with your sibling or your child, let's say, for example. Maybe your 14-year-old, 15-year-old, 8-year-old child is off, having a rough day, having a rough moment. You turn off the sport you love to watch and you go and you tend to their needs, because you know that, a talk with Baba, a moment with Mama, doing a puzzle together, playing a board game together, will really quickly take them out of their bad day, right? And you just, and you PVR it and you watch the game later, right? Sometimes something as simple as your time, something as simple as putting away your phone, canceling your plans. Those are all things, what? Mimma tuhibbun, things that you love, right? Let's say, for example, you have a very nice social night plan with your friends. You've been looking forward to it for weeks and months. And that same day in the daytime, let's say, for example, your wife gets news of a tragedy in her home. God forbid somebody close to her passes away, right? You would cancel your plans, of course, and be with her. Those kind of small things might be everyday things, guys, but they really are things that send a beautiful message to your family, to your loved ones, to your sibling, parent, spouse, and child, that all this stuff doesn't matter, you matter, right? And we can't always wait for people to come and tell us what they need. Sometimes even the closest ones to us, and sometimes, guys, especially the closest ones to us, will not tell us what they need out of pride, let's say, for example, or because, I don't know if how I'm feeling is right. It sounds so silly. How many times have we felt something so strong only to verbalize it to our spouse or to our child or to our parent? And it sounds silly. It sounds, it sounds so petty coming out of our mouth. And now we feel bad for the first reason. And now we feel guilty for being so petty the second reason. So a lot of times, we'll work it out internally. So yeah, we'll kind of go off in a quiet zone. We'll kind of, be away from each other. We'll kind of go for a walk, ourselves, and you could tell that he's not his normal happy-go-lucky guy, and So we can't always wait for someone to say, you know what, hello, I need your help. I need this specifically from you. Sometimes that's not going to happen. We have to pick up signs and symptoms that something isn't right. And at least start off by saying, look, I just, something's not right. Are you okay? Talk about it. If they talk, great, because half the battle is the talk, right? Half the process of healing is the talk. It's just letting it out. Sometimes, I oftentimes say this, I get phone calls from people who are just having a rough go at it for the past couple of weeks, and they'll call me and they'll say, and they'll start talking. I don't see a single word on the other line of the phone. Not a single word. Legit, I let them talk it out. And literally, I can hear them talking themselves out of what they're feeling. At the end, they'll say, oh, Molana, thank you so much. I feel so much better. And I didn't say a word. I just said, okay, wow, really? Inshallah, khalafis. Khalas. All I did, though, I didn't cut them off. I didn't finish their sentences. I didn't downplay what they're feeling. I wasn't talking to somebody else while they were talking to me, right? All those signs are that, look, I have a board now. I have a sounding board. I have someone who's not going to dissect my emotions or downplay what I feel. And all I need to do is hear myself say things to know that it's not going to be that bad. It's silly. I'm being petty. I'm better than that. Whatever the case may be, right? Those are things that are true sakhawat in Islam, true generosity in Islam. And we have to now be able to do that because, it has an effect on how we are with everybody else. Imam Rada alayhi salatu wasalam, Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad, beautiful statement. The ones who are sakhi, the ones who are generous, look at them. Near to Allah, near to people, near to Jannah. The ones who are bakhil, the ones who are kanjus, you say in Farsi, in Urdu. Tangdast, you say in Farsi. Bukhl or bakhil in Arabic. Stingy. You can't get a minute, forget $1 from this guy. I can spell things out in big block letters. He's not getting it. I'm asking him now for the past 2 or 3 weeks, can you please do this for me? Nothing's going in. Because he lives in his own little warped little world. And if it doesn't affect him directly, forget it. The stingy ones are far from Allah, he says. Far from people, he says. Far from paradise, he says. Be generous in your homes. Don't absorb the individualism of today, where it's me, myself, and I. I'm good. I feel great. What a beautiful day. I had a great day at work, a great day at school. I had a good day at home, for example. Right? And you assume that because you feel great, the whole world feels great. And then I actually hear about couples where one is annoyed at the fact that the other one is so down and having a rough day. How can you be annoyed at someone having a rough day, man? I don't get it. Right? And you have to create comfort zones and safe zones inside of our families. I cannot stress this enough, especially as parents. We have to be able now to sit there and make our kids feel, look, you can feel however you want to feel. You can say whatever you want to say, with respect, of course. You can share with me whatever you want to share with me. There's no judgment. There's no this and that. I want you to come to me, because what you want, what I want, what we all want is for our kids to come to us and share everything with us. And they'll only do that when we give importance to what they share. As silly as you may think, oh, this is like, grade 3 drama, grade 6 drama, she's only 8 years old, she's 10 years old, for God's sake, right? You can't do that, because to her, it's everything. To your 9-year-old son, that's his world, right? For you to come in and downplay what he feels, and inshallah, the next principle we'll expand on that a little bit more, is not creating a safe zone. And the moment that your child goes outside the house looking for their safe zone is where we begin to, be concerned, right? We want to be able to allow the child to feel like this is your comfort zone. When outside of this home, it's rough for you, you come home now to feel security and safety, right? Comfort and serenity. That's what you want. And you got to start building that from. And one of the ways is to Give them what they need before they ask for it. It goes a long, long way. I'm not talking about big, massive things. Your time, your smile, an embrace, a cup of tea, let's say, for example, a favorite ice cream, maybe some flowers, maybe, putting everything away and dedicating one evening to just you two, let's say, for example. Don't do anything. Don't just sit there and watch something or sit there and talk about something. Go for a walk together, drop the kids off somewhere. 15, 20 minutes sometimes is all it takes for someone to be pulled out. So they're reminded I have someone in my life or some people in my life who actually care about me, who've actually put their own plans on hold, canceled their own happiness to come and rescue me from, what I'm feeling right now. That is what generosity is. It's not a blank check. I'm sorry. It's not picking up food on the way home because she was craving or he was craving, let's say, for example, this food or that food. No, nothing. Right? That's great. I mean, don't get me wrong, that's great. But there's levels to everything, right? The highest level of generosity is to do that. Okay. That's our fourth principle. Our fifth principle is compassion, right? Shafqat, as they say in Farsi Urdu, and of course in Farsi. اشفاق, they say in Arabic. Okay. Now, this is also a huge one, right? Aren't they all? A really big and important one that I'm going to spend a little bit more time on than the first one. The first one I think makes sense to all of you. It's nothing too huge. This one I think is important. The first thing is that these two terms are used sometimes interchangeably inside Islamic texts. Shafqat and mawaddat, or shafqa and mawaddah. Okay. And let's try to understand each one carefully. Now, this very famous verse from Surah Rum, verse number 21, the wedding verse, the one that you find on every wedding invitation known to man, that reads, وَمِنْ آيَاتِهِ أَنْ خَلَقَ لَكُم مِّنْ أَنفُسِكُمْ أَزْوَاجًا لِتَسْكُنُوا إِلَيْهَا وَجَعَلَ بَيْنَكُمْ مَوَدَّةً وَرَحْمَةً إِنَّ فِي ذَلِكَ لَآيَاتٍ لِقَوْمٍ يَتَفَكَّرُونَ. Okay. That from his signs is that he created for you and from you spouses. So you may what? لِتَسْكُنُوا إِلَيْهَا. You may find serenity in them, comfort in them, sukoon in them, as you say in Urdu. And then Allah says this very importantly. Allah says this very important. وَجَعَلَ بَيْنَكُمْ مَوَدَّةً وَرَحْمَةً. And He says that Allah is the one that places between you and your spouse now, mawaddah and rahmah. What's called mawaddat, or what's called compassion, sometimes we see in our sometimes we will see in our English translations as love. And I'll explain how it's not love. It is a form of compassion. It's a form, inshallah, I'll get to what I mean by mawaddat, wa rahma, and mercy, right? In the bringing of two people, Allah says there are signs for those people who wish to ponder, right? Inna fi dhalika la'ayatin liqawmin yatafakkarun. Now, this principle I'm going to focus on spouses, husbands and wives. What is meant by mawaddat? What is meant by shafqat? So let's understand this a little bit more, okay? Now, so much to say here. The first thing that I want you guys to understand, and myself to understand, is that from this verse, we gather that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala places these two elements inside the marriage. It's already there. It needs to be cultivated. Okay? It's like you bring home some seeds from I don't know, from the garden store to plant. The seeds are there, but you have to, of course, add the water, add the dirt, add the sunlight, add the food, and then it's going to grow. If you let it sit there, of course, they'll become useless. But the fact that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala directly now is saying, I've placed these two things between you two, tells me that to Him in His universe, these two things are of utmost importance. Now, we've touched a little bit upon rahmah. in our discussion on forgiveness. But even shafqat has, they have synonyms, right? Rahma, shafqat, mawaddat, envy, mercy, compassion. All these things are kind of interchangeable, right? But to be compassionate to others is a whole different level altogether. And as I said there on your screen, let's focus on the first one. Ultimately, what I mean by compassion is to place yourself in the shoes of the person in front of you. To look at that situation through the lens of your spouse, not through your own lens. Okay? It's amazing. Again, I have all these stories. I should write a book sometimes. All these stories about marriages and couples. It's we all have our challenges as married couples. There's all those days where things aren't on the same page. There are things where we are skipping in the meadows, right? And there'll be arguments and there'll be fights and there'll be disagreements and there'll be discussions and there'll be and that's all part of it. Those who claim, well, we don't fight. Yeah, you do. You fight more than anybody else does. You're just scared to admit it. Doesn't mean the marriage is falling apart. It's part of it. But whenever I speak to couples, it's always one common theme, and that is that, whenever they call and they complain about what their spouse is doing and why they're so angry, I always ask them a question that baffles a lot of them. I say, look, if I was to ask your spouse about you, what would they say to me? It's always a pause on the other line of the phone. I'm like, hello, are you there? Yeah, I'm just wondering. I don't think that they'll say anything. Whoa, there's got to be something, right? It takes two to clap, man, right? I mean, there's, you have two dishes in the sink. Even when you wash them, they're going to clank, clank, make some noise. And it's so interesting to note that, yeah, we can see, everything from our vantage point, but we can't see it from their vantage point. So compassion is to change the lens from my personal, jaded, individualistic lens to their lens, right? So for example, they're having a rough day. They're not the kindest, let's say, for example, your spouse. They're very curt, they're very short. Now, instead of the blood boiling and saying, why you talk to me like that, stop and think, okay, you know what? Like maybe she's had or he's had a rough morning, a rough day, a rough conversation. Maybe there's a lot going on. Maybe they're in pain, right? Maybe, sometimes pain debilitates you emotionally too, right? Maybe maybe she hasn't slept in a few nights, or he hasn't slept in a few nights. Who knows? But then more important than that is number one on the slide. If you want to be a compassionate spouse, a compassionate parent, a compassionate sibling, or a compassionate child, the first thing is that when you are talking to somebody, you have to value and acknowledge that emotion that they're feeling. We have no right to judge how someone else reacts to something because we would never react that way. I don't know if you guys get that point or not. Let's say, for example, I said something, upsets my wife. She reacts in a certain way, and my instant reaction is, "Oh, come on, stop being so senti." Who gets mad at these things? Why are you upset at what I'm saying? I don't understand. And now I'm dictating to her how she should react to what I say, right? So I'm coming in now and I'm pulling her strings of her emotions, saying, "Okay, laugh this off, be upset about this and that." Or if your child comes to you and says, "I've had a horrible day, I'm really down, this and that. Oh my God, what happened?" And there's some random thing with some classmate of theirs that sounded so foolish. Like, "Oh, come on, really? You stopped me and you wasted my time to tell me about this. You know what, get over it." And right away, what we do is we deflate them, right? We let them know that, A, your emotions aren't even real. How you're feeling is no importance to me. And number two, you devalue the emotion right away. first recognize that there's pain, right? Like I've been speaking about healing since Muharram. Those of you who have followed my lectures in Muharram, up and down Muharram, 2 months and 8 days, and whenever I can in my random lectures here and there, I've been speaking a lot about healing. I think that we are a wounded community. We have a lot of internal quiet wounds that we don't even recognize that we have sometimes. Until the healing process begins, then we're like, whoa, those are wounds that I thought weren't there, or I never knew were there. I thought they were healed. And part of the healing, and that could be, growing up with rough parents who are very harsh in their words, or it could be the fact that you were bullied at school. Could be the fact that you didn't do well in school. Could be the fact that your other siblings are successful in their careers, and you're still trying to figure yourself out. So you're always looked at, oh, what happened to him? And part of the healing process is for someone to acknowledge that the wound you have is real. Look, if there's a knife in your back, the first step in taking the knife out of your back to heal the wound is to accept the fact there's a knife in my back. The person now who's taking the knife out of your back says there is no knife in your back. The healing process won't start. So you come to your spouse, your child, your parent, your sibling, and say, look, I'm feeling this way. And right away what they do is like, no, you're not. Trust me, you're not. You're being dramatic. You're being over hyper. You're being oversensitive. You're watching too much of this. You're doing much of this, blah, blah, blah. And right away, just take a pin to their balloon and just pop it and let them turn around and go. And you think, what? I'm strengthening my child. I'm toughening up my sibling, blah, blah, blah. Meanwhile, what you're doing is you are devaluing them as a human being. They don't feel like how I feel has any value whatsoever. So they will swallow and swallow and swallow and swallow and push it down and push it down. There's no point in me expressing how I feel. Every time I open my mouth, I'm quieted. I'm told, you have no right to feel this way. You're oversensitive. Oh, Lord, here we go again. Rolling the eyes, hooing and hawing. Really? That's how you react? Whoa, wait a second. That's her reaction, man. This is his reaction. How can you come in and say that these words should hurt, these words shouldn't hurt, right? How can you say there's no knife in my back when I can feel the knife in my back, right? So healing now, and helping those who heal with a compassionate heart is to first acknowledge the emotion, guys. Acknowledge the wound. And that's why the first step is empathy. Just say, first of all, I'm sorry. In basic customer service call center type jobs, an angry, irate customer calls you, they train you, man. The first thing to do is empathize. I'm sorry, sir, that you've gone through this. It's not right. You must be so frustrated. Right away, you bring you cool them down, right? Because they'll say, oh, thank you very much for saying that. Right? If they come in hot at you saying, oh, this done, I bought this brand new, it doesn't work, it's it's garbage, blah, 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 and you say, well, it's gonna just escalate. Same idea. Someone comes to you, your child now with a lot of himmat, a lot of courage, comes to his mom, dad, I've been dealing with this situation at school for weeks, almost a month now. I didn't know how to tell you guys. I don't know what to do. I can't eat, I can't sleep, it's bothering me. Every time I go to school, there's a pit in my stomach, blah, blah, blah. Can you guys help me? And he's shaking and she's shivering and she has no idea. And right away, what do? You shut it down. You say, that's your big issue? Are you kidding me? Like, there are people people who are starving and people who are this and that, how lucky you are. And he's like, all right. And right away, he tells himself that I knew it was a bad idea to come to my parents. I knew it was a bad idea to come to my parents. And then the very next week we'll say, look, if there's ever an issue, beta, please come to me. You can talk to me about anything. No, I can't. Or you tell your spouse, I'm always here for you. No, you're not. She tried that and you shut that door really hard in her face. First thing is acknowledge the wound. Acknowledge whatever emotion it is. If she had a conversation with her mother that didn't go well and she is irate for 1 or 2 days, or she's down, or it's triggered her for some old wounds when she was 8 or 9 years old, acknowledge those wounds. Empathize with the heart of mercy. This is the woman you love, right? These are the kids that you would sacrifice for. These are parents that you would serve day and night for. These are siblings that you share blood with. And number two is the idea, and this is where the difference between mawaddat and mahabbat lie. Mahabbat is love. Hubb is love, right? And while love is great, mawadda is one step higher than love, where love can be expressed verbally only. Mawadda is not a verbal expression only. We talk about compassion, we talk about love, we talk about mercy, we talk about empathy, we talk about sympathy, we talk about action. Right? Allah says, وَجَعَلَ بَيْنَكُمْ مَوَدَّةً وَرَحْمَةً inside this beautiful verse. What is mawaddat, guys? Mawaddat is the idea to verbalize. Always make it a point to verbalize your emotions with your children, with your spouse, with your parents, with your siblings. Even if you find it that you don't have the words, it doesn't matter. Read something on Instagram, memorize it, and say it to your spouse. She knows. No, man, she doesn't know, bro. She might know, like maybe she knew 7 years ago, man. Tell her again. Imam Salih says that when you tell a woman that you love her, it stays in her heart forever. When you tell her, when you use the words, I would say the exact same thing for my child, for our children. I'm in my 40s, man. Old man, white beard, everything. I still remember those precise moments growing up when my father, marhum, would tell me, express his happiness with me. I mean, I came from a typical Pakistani family, right? Immigrant parents. They weren't very expressive in their emotions. They weren't, way to go, son. I never got that. I think half of you guys didn't get that. But the moments that we did get that, it felt good. And it was enough to make us move on. I can literally, remember almost every moment that my dad made me feel like that. I'm no fault of his. I'm not complaining, but I'm saying this is how it is. And I've made a point to, express your emotion. Be expressive. Use the actual words. Don't assume they might even know. But sometimes love needs validation. And I don't mean the love only of a spouse. I mean the love of a child and a parent. Hug your child. Say, you know what? I am so blessed that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave me you. You make me proud. I can't believe you're my son or you're my daughter. They might think, mom's gone weird again. They may think that. But it has a place in the heart. But, this is where now mawaddat comes in. If you're going to verbalize it, back it up with action. What I mean by that is the way the ulama describe what mawaddat is. Because remember, and I'm talking a mile a minute today, I know. Remember, in the same Quran, the only other usage of the word mawaddat is when we talked about the Prophet of Allah asking for his reward. Remember, 124,000 prophets, none of them except for one asked for anything from their ummah. We don't want a reward for what we did to you or for you. We don't want any sort of jaza. We don't want any shukr. We don't want any plaque. We don't want, a tali. We don't want, a recognition day from you. Nothing. We don't want anything from you, the Prophet said. But the Prophet of Allah was the only one who asked for a reward. Right? I will not ask, la as'aluku ilayhi ajra. I will not ask an ajr from you, a reward from you, illa al-mawaddata fil qurba, except that you have mawaddat towards my family, towards my Ahlul Bayt. He does not say muhabbat, he says mawaddat. So not only does the Quran mention mawaddat in a theological aspect, where the Prophet says, now if you want to thank me for what I did for you, I pulled you from the brink of the hellfire and gave you salvation. If you want to thank me, then love my family. Have mawaddat for my family. If you want to bring your spouses together, then have mawaddat between those two. Mawaddat is expression plus action. I love you, honey. I love you, sweetie. I love you this. I love you that. But she's been asking you for weeks, do this, do this, do this for me. You don't do any of these things, but I love you. I love you. I love you. I like it that, whenever I go to my mother-in-laws, if you can please, my mother, can you please come with me, right? They always ask me, why doesn't he come anymore? What happened? Blah, blah. Just come and spend the evening with me there. I don't like it there. It's boring there. Your family's weird, blah, blah, blah. So she goes alone every single time. She comes back from that visit and she's upset and she's a little bit down. I miss you, honey. You know why? Because I love you. Okay. She's been asking you forever, can you please, clean the garage before winter? I want to put the car in the garage. It gets cold in the morning. I have to start my car for half an hour. These Toronto winters are brutal. These Detroit winters are brutal, blah, 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 this and that. Yeah, sure, of course, I will. Before the first snowfall, before December, it'll be a spick and span garage. You watch what happens. November comes and goes. December comes and goes. Mashallah, it gets even more disgusting in the garage. But hey, honey, I love you. I love you. I like it if you could, take us somewhere. Let's go traveling. The whole world, not right now, pre-pandemic. The whole world travels. I have family in Pakistan. Let's go to Pakistan. Can you come with me? Right? Eventually, the words, they don't have the meaning anymore. Our actions have to match the words. Imagine now, she says to you, I'm going to my mom's tonight. Okay. And as she's about to leave the house, you say, hey, hold on one sec. I'm coming too. Oh my God, really? Yeah, really. You put your jacket on, you grab her by the hand, you open a door for her, you put her in the car, you close the door, you walk around, right? And you start the car, you're about to leave, and you lean over and you say, I love you. That love you will mean a lot more than those other ones did. Why? Because there's action attached to it. That's mawaddat. That's mawaddat. When it comes to the Prophet of Allah, he's not saying, I want you to verbalize, sorry, I don't mean to ruffle any feathers here. Just saying labbaik ya Hussein, or saying Nada Hedri, or saying, I love Ali, I love, Ajil Farajahum. Those are all great words. But until our life resembles that, until we actually live Labbaik Ya Hussein, until we actually are ready for the Imam to come, we keep begging him, please come back, until we actually emulate the path of Imam Ali, to the point where somebody looks at us and says, yes, this is a Shia of Ali, then those words of Ya Ali now have meaning behind them. But on one side, we say, Labbaik Ya Hussein, and our entire life now is Yazidi. Or we say, Wa'ajil farajahum, Allah, please send the Imam back. May Allah hasten his reappearance. And it's because of someone like me that he is still in ghaybat. This nifaq, this hypocrisy, this dualism is not going to cut it. Right? So this concept of compassion, this concept of mawaddat is extremely important, right? And while there are more things to talk about, I know there must be questions. I want to make sure I give enough time for that. Last week that I ran out of time, but I want to make sure I have enough time. I want to do a hard stop at 8. So I'm wrapping up now. But these two principles are highly emotionally driven principles. To be generous and to be compassionate, while they belong to the same khandan, the same family, they are two separate concepts. But oh my God, how strong can a family be? And how strong will a family be if we talk about a generous family and a compassionate family with each other? Sometimes I think we are so compassionate and so empathizing with everybody else outside of the house and not with the ones inside the house. Somebody calls me, some random stranger from the community. I will give them 45 minutes of my time. The best listening experience I could give them, I give to this random guy. I don't know the guy's last name. My wife wants to talk to me 15 minutes and I'm rolling my eyes, looking at the clock, looking at the score. What's going on? Come on. The best akhlaq for others, the worst akhlaq for our own. That's not how it should be. Our families, our spouses, our siblings, our parents, and our children deserve our best akhlaq, deserve our compassion and generosity. Why is it that we are so nice and forgiving to everybody else? If someone else's child came to me and said, look, I had this issue at school, I'll exhaust all options to fix that fix that issue. My 13-year-old comes to me and I blow it off. Come on, you're being senti, relax, get over it. Boo-hoo. Oh my God, that's devastating for a 13-year-old. You have no right to do that to her. You can't sit there and tell her, you know what, how you feel is wrong. Baba, it's how I feel. It's the knife in my back. What do I do? Right? And then we have the audacity to claim you can come to me and talk to me about everything. That's not what mawaddat is. Mawaddat is you can come to me for everything. When she does, we open the door and we solve her problem. Or we give her an ear. We sympathize. We embrace her. We say, it's going to be okay. Don't worry. You'll be stronger because of this. She'll feel better right away. Okay, let's end there for tonight. It's a lot, I know, and I spoke a lot, geez. So let me go ahead and look at some of the questions. I know that it's already close to 7:50. I want to make sure that I have enough time. There's got to be a lot of issues right now that I'm talking. So I'm going to stop my share and open up my chat and go ahead. And Mehdi, if you have any personal ones coming to your phone, please do let me know. Otherwise, I'll handle the chat if you don't mind. I can see it from here. Is that cool? I think Mehdi fell asleep. I'm sorry. I was that boring. So anyways, there are a couple of questions, maybe even comments. Assalamu alaikum, Sayyid wa alaikum salam. I can imagine a lot of people arguing that, well, I'm not a mind reader. Right. Yeah, good point. How does someone push back on that thought to exercise true sakhawat? Yes. So, I'm not asking you to know what they're feeling. I'm asking you to, at that moment, give them what they need. Remember, it could be that you have no clue what they're going through. You don't know what triggered it. You don't know what's going on. You have no idea why they became quiet, reserved. I want to stay in bed all day. I just want to, sometimes just kind of sit in my own self-pity. That's okay. You're allowed to have a mental health day. No worries. I'm not here to probe you. What happened? Who was it? No. But bring her a cup of soup, man. Bring her some flowers. Make a nice sandwich for her. Some gesture to let her know, you know what? I'm thinking about you. That's all that I'm asking. That's what generosity is. I'm asking you to come in as Dr. Phil and save the day. So you don't need to read the mind. You just need to know what is it that instantly puts a smile on the face of the ones that I love. Okay? What is it that they enjoy? For example, I know that, if my son, my little 5-year-old boy is having a rough day, and sometimes he has got, he has a rough day sometimes. If I kick the ball with him, if I throw the football with him a little bit, he's got a great arm, by the way. If I shoot some hoops with him, in our indoor net, within 5 minutes, he's a different kid altogether. Different kid altogether. Those kind of things are, they go huge, right? They're really big. So it's important that that's what I'm talking about in generosity. I'm not talking about to read minds. I am saying that you should be well aware of what could help any member of your family to pull out of their rut. Right? There are people who like to talk. They're talkers. Let them talk. There are people, let's say, for example, who, I thought I'd just come in and say hello. How's it going? Blah, blah, blah. Come for 5 minutes, for example. If you and your siblings live apart and you know that your brother, your sister's having a rough day, go over, send your salams. How's it going? Are you okay? Bring in coffee, let's say, for example, right? And that's it. Thanks a lot. It really meant a lot. It really helped. And that's all you can do. That's all you can do. That's a great question. Thank you very much for that. Another question, please, by all means. Assalamu alaikum. Often it's easy for me to be initially compassionate. It's when my kids keep harping on it that I become exasperated. How could I stretch my compassion further? Great, good question. What about those who have disordered thoughts, like severe social anxiety? Can you explain to them that there is nothing to worry about when they're on the verge of panic attack? Yes, so those are good issues. I'm not a mental health expert. I'm not going to pretend to be a counselor or a psychiatrist by any means. The first question is a good one. I think that for kids who harp on it, I think, again, I would really try to avoid, and, I just do this from, I have 3 kids. I didn't go to school and some expertise on childbearing or raising children. No, not at all. But what I do know is that these things work for my kids sometimes. It's distraction, right? Get their mind off things. Maybe they need to talk it out even further. And you're right, some of them really harp on it, and I can't believe it. And you know what? It's okay, and it's okay to say, you know what? It's all right. You know what? You'll be fine. You got it out of your system. You'll feel better. Give it some time. Just distract yourself with something else, right? Do this, do that, because kids bounce back a lot easier, a lot quicker than adults do, for sure. Okay, so it's okay for you to say, you know what, let's move on, let's move forward, let's forget about it. You'll go through a lot of things in your life you have to move on from, right? As long as initially when they come to you, you open the door for them, that is huge, right? They keep harping on it because they keep coming back to you, because that means that, you know what, I know that Mama and Baba, for example, are listening. That's why I keep coming back to you, right? It's a good sign. Eventually you could say, you know what, just let it go now. It's not good for you, look at you, right? It's not worth it. The second question is a tougher one. I know many people who have severe social anxiety. They can't go and buy groceries, for example, to face the public. I still think that for you to suggest that maybe this is just you, making something into a bigger issue than it is. Maybe this is, is this possibly your anxiety, or, are you exaggerating? Are you overreacting? I think that might fuel the fire even further. I still think there has to be empathy. Somebody who doesn't have social anxiety has no idea what it feels like to live 1 second with social anxiety. It's debilitating, right? It's tiring, it's taxing, it's daunting. The mind's always racing, right? That's why people I find with social anxiety are always physically tired, because their mind is racing, right? Their mind's racing. So I think that there has to be, even if you're married to someone, if you're raising somebody, if you have a sibling like that who has immense social anxiety, then you have to be really patient with them, and celebrate the days where they fight their anxiety, acknowledge it, because I find that what is key to a person who is socially anxious is their support system around them. If they feel like the people around me don't get me, they're not patient with me, they don't understand me, they downplay what I'm feeling, everything I tell them, they roll their eyes, then they will sink deeper in that anxiety and depression. If I find that, I find that if individuals are patient, like if the person you're married to or you're raising has social anxiety, and there are days they wake up and say, you know what, I just don't feel like it, back off and say, it's cool. If you need a day to yourself, that's fine. But then when those days they bounce back with them, celebrate, and acknowledge the fact, I was really proud of you today. I could see that you fought your anxiety, right? That way, they'll enjoy that feeling of the victory. And hopefully the victory will repeat itself and the anxiety will lessen. Hope that makes sense. I really hope that makes sense. Again, I don't want to pretend to be an expert, but at the same time, these are things that I think that are important. Are there any other questions, inshallah? The floor is open. Mehdi, are you there? Any questions on your phone?
Sorry, Sayyid, I had to unmute myself. I have not gotten any text messages.
Okay, that's fine.
From anybody. Are there any other questions or comments? Sayyid, thank you so much for that wonderful lecture. And
no problem.
Once again, I request all mu'mineen and mu'minat to please recite a loud salawat and Surah Al-Fatiha, and inshallah also include the Sayyid and his family and his marhumin, as well as the marhumin of the sponsors. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad.
Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa Muhammad wa ajil farajahum. Thank you very much, everybody. May Allah bless you all. We'll see you next Wednesday, inshallah, for our last session. Thank you. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi.